Hello everyone, I'm really glad you've joined me today. My name is Di and I'm a member of the Andover Baptist Church family. I'm leading a series of devotions this week called Thoughts from the Garden, in which I'm sharing some reflections which I've had while being outside in the garden and the great outdoors. Yesterday I showed you my efforts at growing flowers and vegetables from seed and reflected on the business of waiting and trusting God. Today I'm going to share some thoughts with you on the subject of being authentic. So let's pop outside into the garden again for a moment. So outside in the garden is a really nice place to sit with visitors for coffee and a chat, because we've got this lovely flower bed and this wonderful Victorian wall behind it. It's a great thing to look at. And the only problem is that during COVID restrictions, we weren't able to bring people into the garden the usual way, so we had to bring them through here, which, as you can see, is a different thing altogether. Very functional space and not very pretty. So there you have it. It's the least presentable part of the garden, where we keep wheelbarrows, the garden trolley. Things get dumped here. There might be bags of weeds or things heading for the tip. It's not always a total mess, but if I'm honest, I usually feel quite embarrassed if other people see it. And I can find myself wishing that I was the sort of person who manages to keep everywhere neat and tidy all the time, rather than the actual me who manages to ignore a degree of untidiness much of the time and has an occasional blitz to clear up. But then one day a good friend came round, and when I'd finished apologising for the mess, said to me, "Don't apologise, it makes it real." And that really stuck with me. She had made it clear that I didn't need to pretend to be different to the way I really am in order to have her friendship. In fact, she preferred to see me and know me the way I really was. How easy is it to find ourselves wishing we're different than the way we really are? Comparing ourselves to others, trying to be like somebody else who embodies our idea of perfect. And what drives us to do that? Maybe it's our own feelings of inadequacy. Maybe it's the unrealistic expectations of others. There's a story in the Old Testament part of the Bible which can be found in the first book of Samuel, chapter 17. In this well-known story, the plucky David has volunteered to face Goliath, the champion of the Philistine army, in one-to-one combat. Goliath is a giant of a man, a hardened and experienced soldier dressed in impregnable armour and wielding a fearsome sword. David is a young lad who spends his time looking after his father's flock of sheep. Saul, the Israelite king, dresses David in his own armour, but David, having walked around in it a bit, realises that's just not going to work. He decides he needs to fight the way he knows best. When you spend your days out on the mountains, your enemies are lions and bears trying to eat your sheep, and David had fought off both. So he ditches the armour and just arms himself with the weapon he knows best, the one he's experienced in using, a sling and some stones. Goliath is a way off, but before he can get near enough to use his sword, David has already taken aim and fells him with a stone from his sling. He approached the battle uncluttered, not weighed down by anyone else's expectations. He was authentic, walking only with the protection of God and a slingshot. Taking the armour off was the risk David had to take, but it was also the moment he decided simply to be himself. The actress Judy Garland is credited with saying, "Always be a first-rate version of yourself and not a second-rate version of someone else." Well said, Judy, and thank you. I think that captures the spirit of this story perfectly. Being true to ourselves and at times being vulnerable can feel scary, But being authentic has real power because it is living as the person God created us to be, and that will always be impossible to improve on. We need to remember that God knows us inside and out and loves and accepts us just as we are. So the next time we find ourselves wishing we were different to the way God made us, let's try not to dwell on our own inadequacies and shortcomings, but let's focus instead on being a first-rate version of the person God made us to be. The song I've chosen for today is based on the words of Psalm 139. The words in the bridge say this: "You formed me in my mother's womb. You know my frame, my flesh and bone. Oh, how wonderfully made. I can't describe, it's way too hard. You see me through and call me loved. What a wonderful grace." You'll find the link in the description below. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you can make it again tomorrow. Goodbye.